order. It's October 27, 2014. This is a meeting of the Operating School Committee. First order of business is public input. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to talk to the school committee about anything that's not already on the agenda, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized. Okay, hearing none. Next is our student report. Tonight we have Zachary Mullen-Bernstein here. Zach, the floor is yours.
So football lost this Saturday to Kentucky, and sadly did not make the playoffs. The date of their next game has not been decided yet, but will be at Arlington Catholic sometime later this week. Then on Friday, November 7th, the team will face Kentucky at home. This game will also be the senior night for the team. Last Friday was the senior boys' senior night, and the Bishop Fenwick soccer team senior night, and they played Bishop Fenwick and won 4-0. Girls also played on Friday, but lost the game 1-0. This Sunday was also the Cal All-Star game for the boys soccer team, which the Cal small players faced off against the Cal large. Jake Antorcio and Zach Herman were named first team All-Stars, and Dan Coveney, Nick Boston, and Greg Landry were named second team All-Stars. For girls, Kat Pasopoulos and Carrie Ann Donovan were named first team All-Stars, and Cole Kaczynski and Tori Brown were named second team All-Stars. Field hockey lost their game this Friday to Bedford 3-2. For golf, Ryan Delaney and Tyler Stansbury were named Cal first team All-Stars, and Logan Stansbury was named second team All-Star. Ryan Delaney also competed today in the state tournament. This student council will be holding their annual talent show on November 6th in the high school performing arts center. This week was the final week of the student council food drive. The school is working hard to reach their goal of 5,500 items and surpass our total from 5,000 from last year. On Friday, the newly formed dance club held a fundraiser in Finga, where they performed throughout the night. The club hopes to perform at the talent show and will be performing at pep rally. Today, the yearbook photos were taken for school clubs and senior superlatives, and the senior class photo was taken. The World of Sciences is hosting a speech by a mechanical engineer who will be coming to the school to talk with any interested students about his job. 56 students were awarded the Abigail and John Adams Scholarship, which provides a tuition waiver at Massachusetts state colleges and universities. Term 1 will be coming to a close Friday, November 7th, and senior students are working overtime as the first college application deadline of November 1st is quickly approaching. And for my student work, I brought a play that me and a group of kids wrote. It's a retelling of David Goliath. It's for contemporary dramatic fiction.
Does David win? Any questions for Zach? No?
So how are you doing on the college application process? Getting there?
Yeah, I applied for 4 already.
4 early-entries?
Yeah.
Nice.
A lot of work, but it's...
A real lot.
Yeah.
And do you have to write an essay for each one of them, or can you just one?
I have one was not on the Common App, so it's its own essays, the rest are all one.
And in some of the schools, they have to submit the Common App essay plus a second shorter essay.
Supplement.
Yeah, supplement.
They really make you work for it, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Zach, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good job. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm going to skip around just a little bit here. I'm going to jump over to the request for the school trip for an operating high school for Model United Nations Club, Model United Nations Club, and we have Mr. Antonopoulos here, so does he need the floor?
Great. Do I just address the committee from here? I mean,
Introduce the students?
Sure.
Yeah, you can go right from this.
Okay, great. So to my left, I have 2 students with me for this presentation, Emily Zane and Joseph Traumatozzi. Emily Zane, sophomore at the school, and Joseph a senior. I'm going to say a few brief words about the requests that we have in front of you, and then we'll give the students some time to present as well. Basically, we're here in front of the school committee because we'd like to request that we take a trip to the Harvard Model United Nations on the dates of January 22nd through February 1st. This would be a Thursday through Sunday. The request would involve leaving school around lunchtime on Thursday and staying at the Sheraton and taking part in this conference over the course of those 3 days. It's a full day on Friday, a full day on Saturday, and we would be leaving by the afternoon on Sunday. There are 13 students who are allowed to go as part of the delegation. Our committee, our Model United Nations Club right now has about 40 students that are signed up for the club, but as per Harvard, each school only gets a certain amount. This year we've been allowed to bring 13 students. We had about 20 or so interested, and through different quizzes and interviews and mock committee sessions, we whittled it down to 13. And that involves a mixture of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And And these two students are co-presidents this year, and I brought them to kind of speak on behalf of their experience from going to this in the past and why they'd like to go again this year. And then I could answer any questions you have about the details of the trip,
Right.
chaperones and financing and whatnot.
Hi, my name is Emily. I went to the trip last year. I had a great time. I think it was a great way for me to learn about other cultures. I met a lot of people from around the world, people from Turkey, Pakistan, Japan, China. It was really great to meet other people, learn their cultures, and also just to expand my knowledge on how to debate and discuss about politics and current events. I would love to go again this year. It would be great to do it again and meet more people and expand my knowledge in all United Nations.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joseph Trontosi, and I think the most important thing about Harvard Model United Nations is that when we go there, we're not only just representing a country, this year we will be representing Bolivia, we'll be representing our delegation from North Reading High School at this international conference, where we're in community sessions with people from all over the world, from all 6 of the inhabited continents, and that we'll be there and be able to speak with them, not just about whether it be gender inequality or social and wage concerns or labor injustice in each country, but we'll be able to talk about the different school and just kind of daily life and culture of each individual country where all of us are from, even people from within our own state as well. And it's just an amazing opportunity to learn about other cultures and talk about them, expand on the knowledge learned in school, and then use that to talk with others. Yeah, expand on the knowledge learned in the school and share our passion for culture and modern events and international relations with others.
Thank you, Joseph. Do any of the committee members have any questions or comments?
I have a question. So do you have to, before you go in, you have to study Bolivia, both current events and the history of the country in order to present well as representatives?
To present well, exactly. I mean, we've been accepted to take part this year through Harvard. The application is ahead of time, and then once we know whether or not we're in, that's when we come to the school committee. And I just brought what we put together before, and I didn't expect anyone to look through it, but this would be not the study guide for everyone, but this is every single committee. So in here, there are about 50 pages each for 12 different committees. Each student would get, if you can kind of see the green dividers, would get a section of this for their background guide. It would be not just about Bolivia, but their specific committees. So Joseph actually put this together earlier this year. It shows you the 10 different committees that Bolivia would be a part of. I can pass them around. Sure, like
That'd be great.
So each committee has one student. There are 2 separate committees that allow for 2 students, and that's where we get our 13 from. So each student that comes with us from North Reading is a Bolivian delegate. They can be on the World Health Organization, the UN Conference on Environment and Development, et cetera, et cetera. They're all listed out there. And we divide that well ahead of time. The students have to research. They have to write a position paper on the different topics. Each committee tends to have 2 topics. They prepare for both. And over the course of those 3.5 days, they go through committee sessions. I also printed out a tentative schedule that I can pass around to you.
That'd be great. How many, do you know how many delegations from Massachusetts are actually represented?
Joseph brought last year, so you can speak to that. This was, we don't know this year yet. They passed these booklets out when we arrived.
25 schools from Massachusetts.
25 from Massachusetts. And we're one of them. That's great. That's great. Now, remember, you received a report, I think. Didn't we get a report after the fact on this? And it was very impressive.
Yeah, he gave us a report.
Yeah, it was very impressive what the kids got out of it.
We went last year, we went 3 years prior to that. The club has expanded tremendously. I mean, just the fact, I never really had to make cuts before. I almost have presented to students, and this year there was at least 20 interested.
Well, it's great that you have 40 students, 20 interested.
Yes.
Any other questions?
My daughter went through her school that she had gone to her junior and senior year, and she said it was just a tremendous educational weekend. Just, you know, not only having to know the background of the country that you're with, but you learn interactive skills, and that you need to speak up for yourself if you want your country to be heard. I mean, it's one of the things that, you know, she speaks of very highly. It's a wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
I think both the students will tell you there's a frustration the first time you do it, right?
Yeah, you have to, I guess, raise your placard and have your country on a list of other countries that want to speak.
So it's kind of like Jeopardy then, you got to buzz in.
Yeah, raise them right up. But yeah, I had a week for my turn. There's a lot of countries in the United States, they speak a little bit more, but got my turn, and it was nerve-wracking, but it was enjoyable at the same time to go up there.
All right, be assertive. All right.
But in my career, I did a lot of international travel, like a lot. Last year, I was doing that. I was out of the country for 7 months in 1-, 2-, and 3-week trips, to give you an idea how often I was traveling. And at the time, I owned all of the company's business in South America and the Far East at the same time. Managed to, because of that, stop in Europe along the way, and the Middle East along the way. And one of the things you learn from that international experience is how to get along with all people all over the world. And you also find out how small the world is. I ran into a situation where there was a fellow that was working in Denmark, and his company wanted to work with my company in Korea. And so we joined venture. And as a result of that, he came here during the initial phase of the job. And I went to his house to check it out because he had offered to have my daughter come over there for a month in the summer. And then his daughter came here for a month in the summer. The thing that we found was that our families were so much alike that it changed my view of the world right there.
For the better or the worse?
Very much for the better, very much for the better. You find that people deep down inside, all good people around the world think alike, and they all want the same things.
Thank you. Does the superintendent have a recommendation?
The superintendent wholeheartedly recommends this request, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments or questions? At this time, we'll take a vote on the request from the Model United Nations. We need a motion. Motion to approve. Okay, a motion by Cliff, a second by Janine. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries by 1 5 0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emily. Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to keep you updated on
Yeah, we'd like
the forum.
Hear how you made out. Yeah, afterwards. Okay.
Good job.
Next on the agenda is our every 2-week update on our secondary school building project, and that's the superintendent to give that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the secondary school building committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow, and I think it's fair to say that at that meeting, I anticipate that the project manager will review with us an update on the punch list that had been provided to him at that time. When I requested the principal and requested Mrs. Willis, who was then the superintendent, I had worked with Mr. Connolly, the athletic director, Dave Johnson, the assistant principal, A.J. LaPret, and the director of facilities, Wayne Hardiker. We compiled a pretty comprehensive list, so I'm looking forward to the presentation by the project manager at tomorrow evening's meeting. In meeting with Jeff Wetton, our project manager, last Thursday, he informed me that the steel installation for the E-building, which is the bulk of the new middle school, is set and in place, and the welding is ongoing. He also informed me that the acid waste piping for the new middle school science classrooms is complete and it had been inspected. As I think you're all aware, we've had some snags with some of the technology, the AV equipment, particularly in the high school. And so Jeff has assured me that this week is a pretty significant amount of work scheduled to be done by the AV contractors. And the design team is expected to meet with them to ensure that all of the systems are completely operational before any more trainings with school department personnel take place. You probably can see that the brick facade of the middle school is progressing well. A significant amount of work has been done on the front in just the last 6 or 7 work days, so that's encouraging to see. And along with that, the detailed installation of the parapet along the roof is also nearing completion.
Thank you, John. Any comments from any other members? John, Janine, Glenn, Mel, Karen?
I just have a question. I don't know if the fans, I know you've been out, but we had talked extensively in the last meeting about just that, the issue of the AV and the relationship between NORCAM and the team that's working on this. I wonder if there was any update on that partnership.
Well, Cliff is the person to ask. He's the one that's taken on the responsibility of trying to resolve that.
I met Thursday night with the board of directors of NORCAM and discussed the situation with them. On Friday, I got a copy of the document that they had approved, which was supposed to be going to the architect. And when I got that, I turned it around and shipped it to the architect and told them that that was the approved list move. So that's the last I heard.
Okay. So it's ongoing, Karen, to be honest with you.
Just want to make sure that we have.
It's a lot of the stuff is communication, and we're trying to get people together and communicate.
Chair, I have a concern with that. I love having our meetings here, but the fact that we can't go live, and who knows when we'll be able to go live, and I have to tell you that because of the equipment they're using, and because NORCAM has to set up in the back of the room here, the audio quality is not good on the meetings, because they have that single mic that's attached to the camera. I think that NORCAM is doing the best they can. That's my concern, is that this could run into next year, and I don't like the idea that we're meeting and they can't broadcast our meetings live. And then when they do broadcast them, the quality is, you have to turn the volume up for some speakers. Of course, for me, you usually turn it down. But
I'll turn it off.
Or turn it off, right, down or off, either one. But I'm just concerned about that. And do we want to keep meeting here when we can't broadcast our meetings live?
Well, I want to keep meeting here. I understand your concern. I'm as concerned as you are. And I think tomorrow, one of the things we have to address is this situation.
I pin down the dates.
Yeah, and see if we can expedite it. I think it's important. You're right. We should be broadcasting live. And again, it's going to be up to the committee to, if they feel that we should be meeting someplace else. But I know I'm adamant that we should be meeting here. I know we've had other occasions when we couldn't broadcast live as well. But I think that's a good reason for us to push them very hard to get this done. For people that don't know, after the fact, they tried to install the infrastructure necessary to do live broadcasts. So they were working on doing that. Of course, after the room is finished, it's a little more difficult to accomplish that. But I think if we get NORCAM and our architect together, I think we should be able to get this done. Right?
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding of what is in fact available, and that we'll get this sorted out sooner rather than later. I was told on Thursday that the architect was waiting on NORCAM's approval, and NORCAM had an approval in hand, but I don't think it had traveled between the two.
So we should bring this up.
There's a number of these kinds of things that happen over the past, and my goal is to be the implement that changes that pattern. Give me a couple of more minutes, I'll make it.
All right. So let's bring it up tomorrow night's meeting with the secondary school building.
Unless I get out my wire cutters and cable.
Can I just ask so alternatively, if say this doesn't happen within 2 months, obviously the public has a right to see our meetings, broadcasts, so would we then say in 2 months, or what, I'm just making that date up, we would reconsider. I just want to be sure that we're thinking down the line of what sort of that cutoff threshold, because otherwise we'd be meeting in town hall, I'm assuming, would be a recommendation.
I would expect that within 2 months, at the outside, we would have live broadcasting. At the outside, because that takes you to the first of the year, and a lot's going to happen over Christmas.
Yeah.
So you can kind of.
Well, let's do that then. Let's make that our goal. And if we don't have it, say, the last meeting before Christmas, we'll raise this again and
Especially the
put it on the
budget.
agenda.
The budget season has to be
Right.
televised, there's no question about it.
I did just want to expand a little bit more though. So what the plan is here is to have robotically controlled cameras in this room. I believe it's 3 or 4 in this room, 3 or 4 in the auditorium, the Performing Arts Center, and 1 in the gymnasium. The gymnasium will allow NORCAM, if they like, to broadcast live sporting events. The Performing Arts Center would allow live broadcasts of town meetings and other important meetings, and the same with the cameras in here. So that's, and NORCAM is donating, it's somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 of equipment, which is why at our last meeting, we asked that Cliff kind of step in as the go-between between the SSBC and NORCAM.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on the building code?
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the 2014 MCAS analysis presentation. That's going to be done by Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Patrick Haley.
I do have a presentation. I don't know if you want to step to the seats.
I just want to
You all set? Oh, thank you, John. All right.
Anyone else?
Quiz.
Will it be a park quiz or an MCAS quiz?
Next generation.
All right.
Trying to get this to work. All right, I guess we'll look up here. So just a little bit of an overview, a little bit of a reminder that we have English Language Arts and Literacy as an MCAS tested grade in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. We also test mathematics in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. We test science in grades 5, 8, and biology in grade 9. We also have the MCAS Alt Assessment and the Access Assessment for English Language learners. So an overview of our scores. We have our scaled score range here, 200 to 218 for warning failing, 220 to 238 for needs improvement, 240 to 258 for proficient, 260 to 280 for advanced or above proficient. And we'll talk a little bit about student growth percentage. We're saying 1 to 39 is lower growth, 40 to 60 is moderate growth, and 61 to 99 is higher growth. So I just want to talk a little bit tonight, not only with my analysis of the scores, but also really try to stress that this is a district-wide activity where we look at data across the district. Our curriculum leaders lead discussions, and so do our principals with all staff about students in particular grades and department areas. The questions we always ask ourselves are, what data do we have? What data do we need? This extends far beyond just MCAS, obviously, to any other sources of data, many different points of data that we look at for students, everything from test scores, assessments, to attendance, to different variables and demographics that are important to us, and perception data as well. Edwin Analytics is a tool that's been evolving at the Department of Education that really provides access to our curriculum leaders and principals to be able to analyze school and student level data and also test item analysis. This next slide I put in, I think it's an appropriate cartoon given all that's going on in the world right now. And you can see, so you're educated in the public school system, what does that qualify you to do? And the person says, is that a multiple choice, true, false, or fill in the blank question? I think we're all feeling a little bit of the anxiety with over-testing. It's definitely something that's political. It's in the news right now with our elections coming up. And I think it's important. I think this committee has always done a very good job to both value the importance of our assessments and our standardized assessments, but realize that it's only one piece of data, one piece of evidence, that it does not represent the whole child or the whole educational experience for a student. But it is valuable data and important data, and that's why we take the time to analyze it. As I'm going to go through now, I'm going to be showing you mostly district level data, but again, I'll show you a few things that schools and buildings may be looking at as well. So at the district level, when we look at data, we look for trends and patterns in the data. So I'm going to be showing you a lot of 4-year data just to look at what's been happening overall, advanced, proficient at different grade levels for our different tested subject areas. At the school level and the grade level, you may be looking more at some specific questions and some specific standards. At the district level, we may be looking at a wider picture of growth measures overall. At the school level, we're going to look at some specific students, consider the question, what interventions will help. At the district level, we'll be looking at subgroups, identifying some patterns and some support for those subgroups. At the school level, when we look at subgroups, we might be looking at what interventions are needed to help those students right away. At the district level, part of the role is that we're guiding our curriculum leaders in this work of analyzing data and looking at data to make decisions about instruction. At the school level, we're going to really focus and dig into student work and look at some of the scoring guides to think about next steps. An area of focus at the district level would be to look at district and grade spans. At the school level, a focus area is really looking at the school and the student. And a consideration at the district level is what kind of professional development do we need? What adjustments do we need to make to curriculum on a large scale based on some of this data that we're seeing over time? At the school level, we're really going to be looking at instructional approaches and student interventions. So just an overview of some of the analysis that's done. All of our curriculum leaders led groups and reported back findings from their analysis of the data from this year. So we're just going to start by looking at something in our subjects. Keep in mind some of the variables from this year. This was the first year that students were fully tested, and we've got the reports are fully assessed with the 2011 standards. In past years, you were able to look at the 2011 standards, but it came as 2004, and then you could choose to view how we did with the 2011 standards. This year, all the standards are fully mapped to our 2011 standards. Keep in mind that some 5th grade students did not take MCAS last year because of test fatigue. There was the park field test in grades 3 and 5 in 2 schools. All of our grade 3 students did take the MCAS exam.
Can I ask a question
Yep.
on that? So would that have had an impact on some of our scoring from last year to this year, some of the scores that were, in other words, when you group all the kids together, if you're missing 35th graders, then that somehow could have an impact on your score, correct?
It certainly could. I mean, you're removing a few grades. So when we're looking at district-wide scores, if those students are all high achievers, you're now taking them out of the mix to that point. And again, that was 2 5th grade classrooms at the batch. This also reflects our 8th grade math standards curriculum. So remember that we're teaching the new 8th grade standards last year, and this is the first set of scores coming back reflecting that. So for English language arts at the grade 3 level, you're seeing a pretty steady performance here overall. Just give me 1 second. I'm not getting this to play correctly. Higher numbers, obviously, of proficient and advanced. What we really want to see, and you'll see as we work toward it, you really want to see the left-hand column as your highest number. You want to be looking at high overall, advanced, and proficient. But ideally, you want to see your advanced scores topping over your proficient scores. That's really what we're working to. But steady advanced and proficient, but there's obviously room for improvement there for advanced. Very similar trend in grade 4, pretty steady. But we are seeing a slight drop off in our advanced numbers from last year, and we would like to see that improve. Similar for grade 5, fairly steady over time. Room for improvement. Similar grade 6. Grade 7, challenging test. We've got our writing introduced here, so again, we're always wanting to concentrate on our writing. We do see a drop off in the amount of advanced. Still good numbers. We have a high 87% of our students advanced or proficient, but we would like to see more of those students in the advanced column. Remember that when we talk about our calculations for accountability, the more students you can move from proficient to advanced, you can get bonus points in that situation as well. So that's really a goal that we have at our middle school. And 8th grade, similar story. Good numbers overall, advanced proficient, room for improvement for moving more students into advanced. Now we're going to look at high school. First we're going to look at growth. I just put this up here. This is another model to look at growth. Again, we want our growth to be in the moderate or high area. You can see this chart shows you that we are all in the moderate growth area, with 6th grade and 8th grade being to the left, 7th grade kind of to the right. So again, the growth model measures the students against their own cohort, how they're doing relative to their other academic peers.
Patrick, question.
Yes, sir.
So that X represents the average state growth model, or so we're falling to the left in 3 of our levels, right? We're lower than the state in terms of growth.
No. We're just that 6th grade relative to 7th grade relative to 8th grade. This particular graphic is showing us. Okay. We're above the state growth for all of these areas, and we're in moderate growth for all these areas. Just another example of a graphic. This is another report that we use. I'm not saying this is the trend overall, but this is an example. This is from 7th grade. Just showing us the school subgroups, the district subgroups, and the state subgroups. What I'm seeing, this is for students with disabilities. In this particular test for 7th grade, what I'm seeing here is our students with disabilities are keeping up pretty well with our students in our other subgroups, and not quite falling where the state is. So they're definitely achieving above the state. You're definitely seeing the questions that did trouble the state also gave a challenge to our students. But then our students, even our students with disabilities, are still achieving at a higher rate than the state rate, which I think is impressive to look at. But we can, this is a great report at the bottom. You can't do it right here because this is a screenshot, but if you were to click on those test items, it actually gives you the problem and the prompt. And whenever those are reported, that's a very good source for our teachers to be able to go back and say, this is a question, a particular question that gave us trouble, and they can then practice that with students. So these are some good resources for us as well. Again,
sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, because I'm trying to understand this graph.
Sure.
So the district subgroup, is that all students with disabilities across the whole district, and the school subgroup? What is that?
Sure. So just the difference here, just remember that I'm looking at this at the district level, and the district level includes students who are registered after October 1st, students who may have moved out of the district. So it gives you a slightly different number there. But for the most part, you can just see where our students are achieving relative to the state. So, yeah, no problem. So again, ELA grade 10, very good numbers. So again, this is our story that you're going to see continually. Our end goal of 10th grade English, highest achievement in advanced and proficient. The advanced scores higher than the proficient scores. And we're seeing some very good numbers here. This is, we've got advanced higher than proficient for 3 out of the last 4 years, which is a good trend that we want to be seeing. Mathematics in grade 3. We're going to move on to mathematics, sorry. Mathematics in grade 3, this is good news. We've got a higher advanced score than our proficient score. Good numbers there, grade 4. Similar story, I think we're seeing our lowest needs improvement and warning score in several years. We're trending upwards at grade 4. At grade 5, we're seeing some of our highest advanced scores, and our advanced and proficient total continues to be high in grade 5. In grade 6, we have steady advanced and proficient scores, more advanced than proficient, which is a good trend. Steady improvement at grade 7. Our advanced and proficient scores good there as well. Grade 8, very rigorous curriculum, rigorous test. Interesting to see what's happening here. Advanced and proficient is good, more proficient than advanced. I think this is interesting to consider as we talk about the rigor of that 8th grade curriculum, when we talk about the shift now to 8th grade standards and all students taking this 8th grade test. We're still having 29% of the students needing improvement. on this curriculum. So when we talk about the standards, only 24% of our students are scoring advanced on that test. So as we move to introducing an Algebra 1 curriculum in grade 8, it's interesting to consider how students are doing on this grade 8 assessment at this time.
But last year was an anomaly in terms of, if you look at the trend, we were 24% advanced except for last year. And again, in a small district, 7, 8 kids can throw that number completely out of whack.
Absolutely.
So, I guess seeing the needs improvement going up to 29% is, but again, that was the same. So last year could have been an anomaly for us, right, in terms of the group of kids and the scores that we had.
It can be. Similar advanced proficiency, you're just seeing a different number, a higher number of advanced last year. But again, we are seeing new standards in 2014 being assessed. So there is one of those variables to consider here. That's, we've been working towards incorporating those standards. Last year is the first year of the full implementation. So it's a slightly different, rigorous curriculum that's being assessed in 2014. But you're right, overall, 2011, 2012 look a lot more like 2014. That's why we look at the 4-year. But good news again in grade 10. 65% of students at advanced, 24% proficient. 2011 obviously was an excellent achievement year, but a good overall showing here with the 89% advanced or proficient for grade 10 mathematics. We're going to look at science. Yeah, I had fun with that. Grade 5 science, again, we see a good number of advanced proficient, room for improvement, as I stated in other graphs. 8th grade, very rigorous test. You'd see similar scores throughout the district, throughout the state for 8th grade assessment. I would point out that if you were to look at the state averages here, I would say that we are above average for proficient. We're actually a little bit below average with the number of percent. It's interesting to note that very few people across the state are proficient, but it's interesting that North Reading is even below the state average. Usually we're above the state average in that area. And I point this out just to, we are considering, as new science standards come on, we will be having discussions about possible changes to our curriculum in the middle school when we talk about the differences between an integrated approach and a grade-by-grade approach. It is interesting to note that there is some room for improvement in 8th grade as we have that discussion. Yes?
Statewide, this test forever has been incredibly low
Yes.
in the advanced category.
Absolutely.
It's the only test of all the tests given that's consistently had such a low advanced score. So to me, the curriculum and the test aren't syncing up because you have a lot more kids advanced. I'm just curious as to why somebody at the state level hasn't addressed the issue. Have they talked about it at all?
They have. There's a lot of questions about this test and this assessment. The word is, I was actually at a seminar all day today with these folks. The assessment is still going to be a 8th grade test. It's going to test standards from grades 6, 7, and 8. Part of the fully align with what it should be measuring, and that's something they really need to address. They're going to adopt new standards next fall for next year, and then they're going to start the work of changing this assessment. So we're not going to see this assessment change for another 2 to 3 years. They are aware that things need to happen, but this is how it is. This is the, part of why I showed this, like you said, very, very low advanced scores across the state. So that's not something that's unique to North Reading. Our high school biology scores, again, this is the pattern that we'd like to see, high, advanced, and proficient with our high scores in the advanced range. And as you can see here, our 53% advanced is well above the state average. I showed you this before. This is our DART comparison districts: Acton, Boxborough, East Longmeadow, Hanover, Longmeadow, Linfield, Medway, North Reading, Pentucket, Reading, Sutton, and Wayland. These are the schools that, overall as a district, that we're comparing. We are a high-achieving district. We do very well. But when you're compared to similar districts, this is where we are. Definitely room for improvement. In ELA, we're ranked 6 out of 11. The top score would be Acton-Boxborough. In mathematics, 5 out of 11. In science, 5 out of 11. In percentage for ELA growth, we're tied for 7th. And for math growth, we're we're at 5 out of 11. So we're somewhere in the middle of the pack there, and definitely room for improvement. Again, these are districts with similar enrollments, similar income status, similar student with disability status, similar English language learner populations. And interestingly, East Long Meadow, you can see there has quite a few more low-income students than we have here.
No, I'm surprised Acton-Boxborough is in there. That to me is, I don't understand how the demographics match up with ours at all. So I think that's kind of an outlier. I would, in my head, I'd throw that out. The rest of them seem to make sense, I think, as a first being compared to.
And it is interesting, and the schools are different. If you look at the school levels, the high school has its own set of peers that is compared to, the middle school has its own set. And this is data that I show, it does help us reframe the argument, because sometimes when you're moving, as I've said before, when you're moving from good to great and you're looking at your scores, they seem very high. But sometimes it's good to say, how do we compare against our peers, similar makeup to our district? So a few things, summary again, we have high performance at grade 10. Writing continues to be an area of focus throughout the district. When we do look and we drill down to our scores, we can see that making improvements in our student writing are key areas where we can gain points and scores for English language arts, and actually across the curriculum in writing. We will get more data this year than ever before based upon some new tests and new assessments at grade levels. And again, just a reminder that we have our Common Core standards fully tested this year, and that'll continue into the future. As I mentioned, new science standards are coming along, but we're not going to see assessment changes there for several years. This year, we're going to have our English language arts and literacy in grade 10, which will be an MCAS test. We will have mathematics at grade 10, which will be an MCAS test. We will continue to have science in grades 5, 8, and biology, which are MCAS. We'll have the MCAS ALT assessment, and also the access test for English language learners. And just remember this year that we'll be having PARCC testing for English language arts literacy in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. In mathematics, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Our 9th grade algebra, we will have test results on our new algebra curriculum this year, which we do hope to bring to the middle school next year as well. We'll have results on how that curriculum, we'll get the feedback from the state at 9th grade. Reminder that we're doing the paper test at 4 schools and a computer test at the Batchelder School. And I think it's important just to keep in mind variables as we think about this time next year. I'm just going to set the stage for this year. We are looking at a lot of variables. This is the first, we're going to have new standards that are being fully assessed and are reported at grade levels. This is the first time we're going to have grade 9 feedback. When we look at other multiple districts, some are taking PARCC, some are taking MCAS, and even those taking PARCC, some are doing it on the computer, some are doing it on paper. And remember that next year when we talk about our school percentile calculations, any assessment results from this year, from 2015, will not be reported and used in the calculations for 2016 to 2018. So there's many, many variables. What I'm getting at overall, this is really a time where at this large level, looking at district-wide data and district-wide accountability, there are many variables. There will be many crosswalks and many things available for us to analyze data, but there's certainly going to be a lot of variables in our consideration. So I go back to what I said earlier about, I think this committee's done a great job in the past of taking this data, using it for improvement, using it to analyze, but also realizing that it does not tell the whole story of what's going on with our education, with our students. And I think we've kept a very good perspective with that in the past. We will continue to analyze our data and use it because it's very useful to us, but the next few years are certainly years of change and a lot going on in our state as far as assessments in the next few months and in the next few years.
Thank you, Pat.
Any questions?
Questions from the committee?
One of the things we didn't get into, and we could probably spend another 4 hours on this, and I'm sure Jared would like to do that, but the areas of student growth percentile and composite performance index. And as I look through our performance in that area, that's where I started to get some concern, unless I'm reading these results wrong. But I look at the middle school, and we had a set of goals for this year, and we didn't meet the goals in any category for middle school. And on the student growth percentile, we didn't have any of the groups between 51 and 59%, which is where they're supposed to be. So I guess, one, obviously that's a concern just looking at it, but two, is there an explanation? And then I'll go on the other side. The Hood all of a sudden is meeting almost every one of their goals, both on CPI and student growth percentile. And then Little School kind of took a couple of steps backwards. And I see in some areas we're scoring lower in 2014 than we did the benchmark year in 2011, which again is a concern because if we're supposed to be going this way, we shouldn't be below the benchmark year. So that's a whole bunch of stuff for you, if you can respond to it, or if it requires another meeting, or...
Yeah, no, we can look more, if you would like to look more closely in middle school at some point, we can do that. There are many variables in these areas. One thing that I would say, it's 1 year data, but we've done a lot at the Hood School with our students with disabilities with co-teaching. It's been very successful at the Hood School. And it's really, again, it's 1 year data, but it's been very well received by teachers. And we did see, at least in 1 year, a correlation. The scores have really improved in that area. I know that middle school is exploring this as well. I think that really will be a step in the right direction. But if that is something that you'd like, I can also work with Ms. O'Connell also to really take a look at middle school scores and present them in particular.
I guess you can decide with the superintendent and through the chair, but I'd like to get a little bit of a better look at CPI and SGP for the entire district, because it seems like that's where we're lagging a little bit in certain areas, like there's maybe fourth grade reading, or there's certain areas that and the middle school came up to be the biggest concern to me. So if we can put that, Mr. Chair, in the future
absolutely.
agenda.
I think, make it a future agenda item.
Absolutely.
Spend some time on that.
Okay.
I just have a
Karen?
comment. So when I look at this data, I think it's all great because it's bar charts and we're always well ahead of every other district generally. And our students are high achievers. I have a hard time matching up the numbers with what's actually being done on the ground. We talk about fantastic strategies we've used, from high level where we're putting budgets together where we can fund different models to the actual interventions. And I'd love to see sort of an annotated run chart or something where, it shows us when these things were implemented. And I'd also like to see the cohorts themselves, not just each grade, because grade 10 is different each year. What about the whole cohort? Are they improving? Is there a shift where we're seeing kids go from proficient to advanced in that cohort as they go through? Because we do have longitudinal data. So I'm sure you guys are doing that kind of stuff. I know I'd love to see that. These will help me kind of connect the two from what's happening on the ground to the actual outcome. Are we improving? And is the change we're seeing an improvement due to the strategies that we're implementing? And I'm not sure I've resolved that. And I know that was the purpose of tonight. But I would really love to have a discussion about the alignment there. So, food for thought.
Thank you. Look, any questions from the audience?
I do have one question. Looking toward the future, when we switch to PARC, how do we go about analyzing test results in this fashion?
Sure. So we're not 100% sure what the future holds. There's going to be an election in a few weeks. There's going to be a school board, Board of Education vote in the future to see what the next assessment is. It's either going to be PARC or MCAS. Again, no matter what, the assessment will be different. So if it's MCAS, it'll be a very different assessment. Just as when they introduced MCAS, or they introduced any new assessment, they're going to provide all kinds of crosswalks and, to show us how to analyze data. They've given us those crosswalks to assure. One example with PARC versus MCAS, I can tell you right now, what we're going to be looking at next year, there are 5 performance levels versus 4. And so they've come up with calculations to help us understand what a 5 and a 4 looks like on PARC versus what a 4 looks like on MCAS. I can share that out. It's on our website. There's all kinds of preliminary documents of what those crosswalks will look like. Obviously, when the results come in, they'll have actual numbers in there, but it's sort of a guide to show you what it will look like. But there will be some crosswalks. That'll also help with educator evaluation data also, because many of our teachers have goals around this, just like our schools have goals around it. Many teachers have goals, and all of that has been assured that'll be crosswalked.
I'll follow up on Julie's question. So the state set, for 2017, they've set, CPI and student growth percentile, which basically has to be 51 or above. But for the composite performance index, they've set numbers for 2017. Do we know if those numbers are going to stay the same, or could that whole thing change based on what tests the state board approves?
I believe that will stay the same, those numbers. They will do the math to make those numbers stay the same.
So we have 3 years to get to those numbers. In many of our groups, we're close already. In some, there's going to be a challenge. Will there be new plans put in place based on the 2014 results, especially for those groups where we're being challenged to meet the 2017 number, or is it an existing program that will just step up like we did at the Hood for special ed students?
Each school level will set their accountability goals this year based on the data from this year and how close they're closing in on their targets. So there are plans in place in those school improvement plans that will be updated this year to include new strategies and new interventions at every level to meet those goals.
And do you have specific interventions for groups whose 2014 results fell below the 2011 benchmarks? Again, on a year-to-year basis, it's, it could be 5 or 6 students that throw the whole results off one way or the other. But do we have special interventions for any of those?
We do. I'm very optimistic. One of the big things that we've done this year is a part of all that we're doing with educator evaluation and all these other pieces, trying to find those common threads between the many different initiatives that are out there, but actually using them all for the same goals. So we've introduced a lot of new assessments this year. We've got, at the elementary schools, we've got mathematical assessments that are on the computers. Teachers are raving about the kind of data and feedback they're getting on students right now. The assessments are telling you not only where you are against standards, but actually where the student is. So some of the students are showing that they're actually above grade level, some are below grade level. We're getting that information right now, which is then helping us make more prompt decisions about how to provide interventions and support for all those students. Similar with English language arts, we've increased the number of assessments we're giving for students to get that baseline data at the beginning of the year to begin our interventions much sooner. So I am optimistic that we'll see some improvement at this time. We're really pushing our writing. There were some definite shifts with the standards and the types of writing that's being assessed and the kinds of writing that students are being asked to do. Lots of close reading, lots of writing to text and providing evidence. And we're providing a lot of professional development to educators and a lot of practice with students in these specific types of writing. And I do hope to see some improvement. So when we come back here next year, we're looking at some different scores. Again, huge gains in those CPI with those bonus points. If you can move students from proficient to advanced, or from warning needs improvement up to proficient, those are the areas that we're going to move. And sometimes, like we said before, it's a handful of students. If we can get that handful of students to recognize ways to gain just a few points, our students are there's a lot of students right on the cusp of knocking on the door from needs improvement to proficient and from proficient to advanced. And those are the students we have to capitalize on and move with. So that's really what our curriculum leaders, principals, and myself are working on at every school right now.
Okay. Jerry, if I could ask too, in addition to Patrick coming back and doing a report on CPI and SGP, if somewhere mid-year we could get an update on the Common Core implementation. I know we've been implementing it for a couple of years, but as we move further into it, it has become a very hot issue, especially I think with elections. You read a lot of horror stories. I'd like to be assured that those horror stories aren't happening in our district.
Absolutely.
And so,
Put something like that on for January.
or February.
Absolutely, and just so I can address that too, there's a lot going around, and it's definitely out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of things that are viral on YouTube, and those are terrible things. And those situations and those things that are being shown in classroom, where it's all about worksheets and all about, We're going to have some information nights for parents as well as a school committee forum. We're going to do some information nights at all 3 levels just to talk about and just to hear from parents questions that they might have, information about Common Core, try to address what's happening in English language arts, mathematics, and science. Show them where we are. We'll have some of our curriculum leaders there as well to answer some questions because it's a very topical issue, as you mentioned. Lots going on with this.
If we put something on in January, Joe, why don't we get some emails out too and let people know for that meeting that we're going to have. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. David.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is our minutes of October 6, 2014. Looking for a motion to approve. I think there were only 3 members here.
No, no, you're not there.
Okay. So a motion to approve the October 6, 2014 minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Cliff.
You have a second.
All right, a motion by Cliff and a second by Janine. Any comments? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 3-0 with 2 abstentions. We have a budget update. I'm going to ask the Director of Finance and Operations, Michael Conlon, to give us that.
Great, thank you. In your packet, this month was the monthly October budget report summarizing the first quarter of financial activity. On the expense side of things, I'm happy to report that everything is certainly within budgeted amounts. Schools have certainly encumbered the majority of their expenses that are known at this time of the school year. I will point you to some highlights. I will mention that there are funds available in special education, transportation, and tuitions. This is the result of some change in student placements and the reduction in the number of forecasted students during the budget season that are requiring transportation. As it has been reported in the past, we also have some additional flexibility in the budget this year as a result of prepaying special education tuitions at the end of fiscal year 14. This will provide some flexibility in this area and help us address any unforeseen costs this fiscal year should we need to do so. We turned on the heat for the first time in the past week or so it's still too early to know where we're at with the utilities and the building funds to repurpose, as well as how the electricity and gas situation is being handled at the high school level. But from what I've seen to date, I do think we'll certainly be in the budget ranges and utilities as well. The food service program ended the first month of September and closed out. The amount was slightly above the budgeted, slightly below the budgeted ranges, but that is not uncommon amount this time in September. Typically, as the program moves throughout the school year after startup, and we have some of the longer operating days later in the year, they can certainly recover from any projection that they might have been below the first month of the school year. But I am happy to report that the district's total meals sold was up 5% from last September. And in particular, at the new high school, meals sold increased by 70% compared to last year. So that's certainly positive trends that we hope will continue. Adult meals sold were also up 10% compared to last year. I'm seeing this mainly at the high school and middle school level. Some more staff are certainly going out to the cafeteria. We hope that those trends will also continue. But these are trends we'll be watching closely as we move through the first quarter of the school year and prepare for to do that assessment and analysis again for next year.
Okay, because we have Chapel's on a one-year
contract
this year.
Okay. Do we have some sort of timeline? Because we're going to have to negotiate with them one way or another.
Correct. So negotiations, I'm sure, will start up again after the holiday season in January, February. So the plan is to certainly watch the September, October, November, December, the first 4 months of the school year's numbers closely. Should these trends continue, and we're holding them to what they had forecasted and what they provided in their proposal, and that was an operating loss, which would be about half of last year's, about $37,000 loss. We thought that was the best we had received financially from the proposals that came in a year ago, and they were confident they would deliver. So at least I feel they're on pace through the first 4 or 5 months of the school year. We'll have to be able to watch that closely and then make the decision whether we want to renew or go back on the bid at that time.
I've always found Chapel was very cooperative, very
I have
willing to work
as well.
with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the other issue is, you know, we did discuss last year privatization.
That's correct.
And we have to, so that 4 or 5 months should give you a good indication as to what direction.
Yeah, I think having these 4 or 5 months of data can kind of tell you, are these trends in abnormality, or are they going to continue? Certainly, I'm hopeful based on what I've seen in September. It was a shorter month. It was only a 17 operating day month, where a year ago was 20.
Right, we started school late.
We started school a little bit later, so we're starting to see the numbers that we're hoping to realize. So it's it will be important to look at these trends as well as several others that we're looking at on a monthly basis to see if they're going to reach their benchmark. But I think 4 months of data through December will tell us a lot, and we'll decide what we go to decide what the next steps are for negotiations to begin.
Jay, can I ask John a question? Sure. John, so you're principal for you're principal all of September and some of October. Were there any issues that you know of with Chartwell's taking over at the new cafeteria? Is everything running smoothly?
My impressions are that there were no negative issues. In fact, as Jim just noted, I think Chartwell's is really making an effort this year to go out of their way to expand the service providing that they offer the district. Some of the things that we talked about when we were looking at their contract last year, trying to bring more things in-house, banquets and catering facilities and such. So nothing negative to report. In fact, if anything, will be all positive.
In fact, I think that the Day of the Young Americans program, they've had 300 people
Right.
in the cafeteria.
Americans.
And I talk to Anna McGovern fairly often, and she's just absolutely delighted with the kitchen facilities. I think there's a couple little things here and there that they've been straightening out, but she's absolutely delighted with the facility.
And very committed to trying to make it
She's
work.
terrific. She's terrific.
So the breakfast program is underway at the high school, and it's first month the numbers were low, but they're working on expanding and growing that and getting and marketing that program and getting the word out.
I know one thing about Chartwell's, they're not stagnant. They will try different things.
They'll try different things, and they know. I think they know that last year that we expect some results and some improvements, and I think they're working hard to make sure that happens this year.
They're also up against it with policy, so,
Right.
I mean, they have some more significant limitations they can control.
Exactly.
So I think
Correct.
this is great, the
Correct.
number of meals being sold increased is great.
Michael, thank you. And you also have a report on
Yeah,
the
so,
enrollment projections as well.
Correct. So the last thing on the budget report was just payroll. Again, nothing significant. Everything's good within budget ranges. Obviously, the administration line is slightly running at deficit at this point because of some of the changes in the staffing changes. But we hope that will be minimized as we appoint some positions over the next several weeks. So there's no questions on the budget report at this point.
Any questions on the budget report before Mike goes on to the staffing? I mean, the enrollment. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, so with the October 1 numbers being in, and those were reviewed at the last meeting, I thought it was appropriate that we would take a moment this evening and talk about enrollment projections. And as you know, this is an annual process that we go through annually as we get the October 1 numbers, and we review those numbers and update those into our methodology, and we track each student closely, and the enrollment projections do change on an annual basis. So really quickly, this is the methodology that we do use. It's sort of referred to as the cohort survival method, and what that essentially does, it sort of assumes that what has happened in the past will continue to happen in the future. That's certainly given that the number of births will have the same effect Net effect on all other influences on enrollment will remain proportionally the same. So it's essentially a basic technique that requires calculating the ratio of the number of children in one grade in 1 year compared to the number of children who survive and continue the following year and enroll in the next grade the following year. So by looking at this data over several years, we can essentially come up with some trends and some ratios that can be used to predict enrollment going forward on a 3, 5, and 10-year basis. So that's sort of the process that we went through. We've certainly always look at proposed or planned residential development and or turnover of homes in North Reading. As the real estate market improves and there's more development going on in the community, those are types of things that can certainly impact the cohort numbers. So in this case, we've certainly made an attempt to adjust the ratios that we've used from each grade to reflect recent real estate developments as well as to reflect recent trends with the building project to try to better accurately predict enrollment. And that was sort of the process that we've gone through. I will say the two factors that are now at work that are having the greatest impact upon our future enrollments is one trend which involves a continuing decline in the number of births to North Reading residents, and to a greater degree the possibility of a resumption of in-migration of families into North Reading. That was something that has slowed due to the real estate and the economy over the last several years, but it's certainly looking like by some of the data we're looking at this year that has showing that's going to increase, and the in-migration could very well return to North Reading. So one quick stat, in the decade from 1999 to 2008, North Reading averaged 164 births per year. More recently, and expected over the next 5 to 7 years, we've been averaging between 120 and 150 births annually. So that is really having the biggest impact in the near future on the elementary enrollments. We're averaging about 24 fewer births per year than we have been previously. So moving on, this is a chart that shows over the last 10 years. This is our enrollment history. Historical enrollment over the last 10 years has remained relatively stable, as I think this chart sort of indicates. There's been enrollment did peak in fiscal year 2008, and since 2008 we've experienced a slow decline over the last several fiscal years, slight increase in fiscal year 2014, but we're relatively looking at a slight decline district-wide over the last several fiscal years. And as I said, those factors most at play are the decline in the birth rates in North Reading, as well as the slowdown in the real estate market over the last several fiscal years. Okay. So this chart shows your 10-year enrollment projections. District-wide enrollment is expected to decline over the next decade. However, I think one should realize that these patterns, when we look from 5 to 10 years out, are probably less reliable in years 6 through 10, and they're most reliable in the first 3 to 5 years. Again, as soon as the economy and the real estate situation begins to improve in the region, we do expect that they will see additional in-migration of families into North Reading, which will certainly impact the later years of these district-wide projections. One particular stat is between 2008 and 2013, many communities in the region sold only about 60 to 80% as many homes as they did the prior 5 years between 2003 and 2007. In the case of North Reading, on average, 161 single-family homes were sold between 2003 and 2007, compared to only 100 homes in 2009. However, we are seeing this pace quicken, and in 2013, the census data shows that 181 homes were sold, the most since 2004. And the pace in this current year, 2014, seems to be on the same trend. Through August, North Reading has sold 170 homes. So I think it's important when you look at 10-year enrollment projections, especially district-wide, that you look at and the first 3 years as being the most accurate, 3 to 5 years, and in the later years, certainly changes in the in the real estate market and so forth, in the economy, as the developments more pick up, you're going to see immigration could very well return, and it's going to impact the later years of later projections when we look at it from a 10-year perspective. This is just a quick chart, projected enrollment in grade combinations. It's looking at the same data that we just looked at from the district-wide perspective, but it sort of breaks down the major sets of cohorts that we sort of look at and review. Certainly, pre-K through 5, K through 5, 6 through 8, and then the high school level 9 through 12 are different sets, subgroups of students and projections that we pay very close attention to. Over the next 3 years, K through 5 enrollments are forecasted to remain relatively stable. By looking at the chart, where you can look at grades 6 through 8, that's where we're anticipated to see the biggest change. Potentially over the next 3 years, middle school enrollment could decline by about 100 students. The high school level is where we're seeing the increase. And over the next 3 years, the high school level enrollment should projected to increase by about 29 students all within the next 3 years. This was a number that was slightly greater a year ago at the high school level when we looked at these numbers. We did think that we could be looking at enrollment up more in the 840 range, low 840 range. They've slightly changed by looking at the most recent trends, and by 6 through 8 enrollment was about 12 to 13 students lower than was projected this year, so that has a long-term impact on our most immediate projected high school enrollment. But the high school is certainly where we're seeing the increase, in particular over the next 3 years. So the next few charts are going to show the levels, some of the information that I just went over. But certainly the elementary K through 5 enrollment is what this projections are showing. Actuals are in blue. The green are the next 5-year projections. So next school year, we're projected to be about 1,087 elementary students throughout the district. This is a slight increase of 5 students. And as evidenced by the chart, long-term enrollment projections at the elementary level, I think, are anticipated to remain, relatively stable. We could see a slight decline when we look, 5 years out, by about 23 and 24 students, but nothing certainly significant. And certainly over the next 3 years, K through 5 enrollments are projected to decline by only a total of 9 students. The next chart the report talks about is the middle school enrollment, and as I just mentioned, this is where we're expected to see the biggest drastic change, and that is the decline in enrollment. Middle school enrollment is expected to decline by about 29 students next school year, and over the next 3 years, it could be anticipated that 6 through 8 enrollment could decline by a total of 100 students. Certainly, as you can see by the above chart, middle school enrollment did reach its peak in about 2014 as those higher cohorts of students entered the middle school. They're now moving into the high school. And then after 2014, as you can see by the above chart, the middle school enrollment is anticipated on declining annually. As I mentioned earlier, our preference is decline by that we don't, the most accurate can be predicted in the first 3 years, 2016 through 2018, but the long-term decline is not anticipated to last as that in-migration and as the birth rates increase, and which all could be anticipated. That's all going to have a long-term impact on these numbers. Moving on to the next chart, which discusses high school enrollments. So this is where we certainly have the increase, and this is where we certainly need to look at class sizes most closely when we get to the budget conversations and staffing, as we're going to see a steady increase certainly over the next 3 fiscal years. Enrollment at the high school level is anticipated to increase by about 32 students over the next 3 years, as those, again, those middle classes, those higher cohorts of students at the middle school move into the high school. As we discussed, because of the opening of the new building this year, I think which has a lot to do with it, we're seeing a higher survival ratio of 8th grade students into the 9th grade. That number, which was at one point between 86 and 88% of students continuing from 8th to 9th grade, is now closer to 93 to 94% of students. So next year, it is anticipated the high school will have an additional 18 students. And after fiscal year 2018, it is expected that the high school will experience that decline in enrollment that the middle school will be seeing in the near future. So this last chart just, I think, attempts to summarize some of the comments that I went over today. Certainly, from a district point of view, enrollment is expected to decline over the next decade. However, as I've discussed, it is very likely these patterns over the next 10 years will not last. As the economy and real estate market improves, we will certainly see in-migration of students and families with school-age children return to North Reading. And with some of the stats that I mentioned this evening, there's already evidence of this being the case, with an increase in homes sold and new homes being built. So I think the most immediate need by looking at in the near term, the enrollment projections will certainly be at the high school. And as we get into the budget conversations in January and February, these will certainly be numbers that we'll be looking at and paying close attention to. So with that,
questions from the committee?
I just want to say that in fiscal year 2022, when you're in your 22nd year of school committee and I'm in my 17th, we'll finally have the right number of students in our new high school. We'll have under 740.
correct. Correct.
This just highlights the discussion we had at our last meeting related to our upcoming budget discussions and priorities that we're going to have to look at in terms of the high school. And I'll keep John very later that just having come from the high school principal's job, I don't think space is an issue. It's more an issue of staff and resources.
I agree, but it's interesting. I'm looking at the numbers from the middle school. They're consistent with obviously the decline at the middle school is almost the same as the increase at the high school. So I don't know if we can make adjustments accordingly or not.
But that's the problem. If you don't get enough of the decline,
but the decline, if you look at it now, the decline is enough that it's close to 30 students, I think.
Yes, 32 students.
You already reduced the middle school this year, I think.
We did.
Teams, right? So.
Yeah.
With that team model at the middle school, I mean, even with some big decreases, it can be tough to really look at the staff.
Over the next 3 years of minus 29, minus 26, minus 45. I mean,
but the issue you have is you have 2 teams, and you have teams of 5
you just
teams.
can't fix the teams based on one of the school. Interesting enough, and I'm not certain of these numbers, but I believe back in the 70s and even the early 80s, I think the enrollment was well in excess of 3,000.
It was more than 3,000.
And back when I was on Board of Selectmen in the early 90s, enrollment had actually gone down to 1,850 students.
Yeah.
And that's when they had 4 elementary schools in town, and they closed 2 of them, the Murphy permanently and the middle school temporarily, because of the decline in enrollment. So it was a pretty extreme decline. Then it jumped all the way back, as you can see, over 2,600.
2,800.
It was, well, 26 on the charts that we saw, but it was 2,800 in the early 2000s, I think. It was over 2,800. So there's some extreme patterns that seem to run through the enrollment projections.
We're going to sell with 170 through, I guess, the town's pricing, well over 200 homes sold this year. That's a huge number.
Huge increases.
Last year and this year, it's almost going to be almost 400 homes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
To some of the
families. Yeah.
Michael, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, staffing. I'm going to ask the superintendent to report on staffing.
Yes, thank you. Just one comment about staffing. I'm pleased to report that we have an interim assistant principal who started at the high school today, Mr. Joe Hain, who is recently retired special education teacher and case manager from Concord Carlisle. Doing his work officially today. He was in last week as an observation day on Friday. He's someone that the current high school principal, Mr. Brett, had gone to a leadership program with several years ago. I had occasion to meet with Mr. Hain twice before he was hired. All the reports today are that he had a very good transition.
Any questions? Okay.
I would just add, if I could, Mr. Chairman, that in your packet is a copy of the hiring timeline for permanent assistant principal. The committee has met, the search committee has met. It's been facilitated by Mr. LaPret. There were 38 applicants for the position of assistant principal. There are 6 semi-finalists invited to interview for the position this coming Thursday. It's the hope that, that there will be an appointment coming in mid-November for a start date of December 1st.
Question, are any of those 6 finalists or semi-finalists internal candidates?
Yes.
Any questions for the superintendent? Okay. Thank you, John.
Well, actually, this is somewhat related to staffing. I don't think we discussed at a public meeting that the status of the new fitness center and that we do have someone running that now. I don't know if you want to go over that just briefly.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I can tell you that the fitness center is very busy, and it is particularly busy in the morning from the 6 to 7 hour. Claudia Brown, our health education, physical education curriculum specialist, was appointed the fitness center manager. She had been serving in that role unofficially for about 3 weeks before the appointment was made, which is very nice of her to do. But it's very popular. Students are using it both before and after school on a regular basis. I don't think you would be disappointed with the number of students taking advantage of it. It's nice to see.
I have a question, kind of just from them, working out at the gym, do they take advantage of the cafeteria for their breakfast?
Believe it or not, some of them are running out to go to Dunkin' Donuts before class. So I can tell you that they are scooting out. And I don't know that that's all of them, but I know that that has been something that they still need to.
You know what, Janine? It's funny. That's traditional. Even the kids that have practice in the morning when the hockey team starts practice and swim team, they don't come back here, run in, and they're here for school. They'll go to Dunkin' Donuts or they'll go to McDonald's and then get here late. But I mean, that's the way they operate.
But I mean, the food's got to be better than Dunkin' Donuts or.
Well, come on.
Outrage.
But they really do. It's just.
Or heavenly.
New challenge,
We have to give equal opportunity. Heavenly or Dunkin', we have to give equal opportunity, right?
That's right.
Maybe Anna can go down to the cart and have.
Anna is actually working to bring in Pete's Coffee. She's looking to have a little barista set up in the cafeteria here, so she's been moving in that direction.
I know the CEO of Pete's Coffee, so seriously,
Really?
yeah. So maybe
Now we got a conflict of interest.
maybe we can do a video.
Jeez, if you have a conflict of interest, you're supposed to keep it a secret.
No, we can do a deal.
Good. All right, subcommittee reports. I'm going to ask Mr. Webb to report on the athletic subcommittee meeting, which is the only meeting that's taken place since the last time the school committee met.
Okay, the biggest item on the agenda at the last athletic subcommittee meeting, which was the, I think, first subcommittee meeting chaired by, overseen by John. We met with North Brighton Youth Basketball. They had some concerns related to the new gymnasium setup and the rates, etc., and what those were going to be, and they were concerned they were going to be paying too much money, weren't going to have access. I think we allayed all their fears, and I think Michael and John are going to work with them to make sure that the rates are copacetic with them and everything should be fine. I don't know if you have any further discussion with them, but
We have, I've spoken with each of the members that attended the meeting, and we've confirmed that I've actually met with my staff who does the billing and scheduling. We've confirmed that we'll work everything out and everything will be status quo in that respect.
Just make sure like everyone's aware of what's going on so we don't have conflicting,
Correct, I've done that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly there will be a lot of use.
But again, we're trying to accommodate as many community groups as possible. Youth basketball being a very high user of the gym space. We want to work with them to make sure that they're satisfied.
and a few related issues to their rental of spaces. We've asked them to do a really good job of monitoring kids and others in the building during practices and games. Oftentimes, it's not the coaches or the kids who are playing the teams, it's their little family members who are running around the schools. And we've actually asked them to try to staff, especially the really busy times, we're going to try to staff that with someone to watch the area.
John, do we have any type of a gate that we can set up that goes, say, on Main Street beyond the bathroom area or the bathroom facility that we can use to block off the rest of Main Street going down towards A building when we have different groups and they're using either the gym primarily?
We don't have anything here on site, but there is that steel gate that was at the old high school, now the middle school.
Yeah.
That
may not be a bad idea to
look
at least
into having
talk
brought
to Wayne and consider that just to cut
I
that
can do
off.
that. And if not that, maybe we can come up with some other way to restrict the access beyond that area you're talking about.
Okay. The other issue we told them we look into is whether the bleachers can come out only at 4 or 5 rows, so they can use those. So
Even if it isn't hermetically sealed, maybe give them an idea of what we want.
right, the deterrence. It might not be closing off the whole thing. If you see a gate, you might not try to slip on.
You can lay out a bed and also something on the
Yeah,
floor.
a nail strip.
A nail strip on the floor.
Yeah. We also continued our discussion over the new athletic fields that we will have once the old high school is demolished. The plan right now is for softball field and a full-size practice field, which also can be used for games. There's been some discussion about would that be seeded, would it be sod, would it be turf? If it would be turf, we'd have to raise the money externally because the money for a turf field is not in the budget for this project. I know that I think you had some further discussions, and there are some folks around town that may try to form a committee, or maybe you want to.
I haven't had any formal discussions. We talked about maybe trying to put together a committee to look at the possibility of raising the funds, but it's kind of a short time frame that we have to do that. So when this meeting is broadcast, if there's anybody out there that has $1 million that'd like to donate towards a turf practice field, we'd be glad to name the field after you and put up a sign, a prominent sign.
It's not to be approved at town meeting.
But it does actually. But again, we are also looking at the option. We've discussed this many times in the subcommittee meetings and with the contractor and our architect about at least possibly going to sod. We work very closely with the recreation department in the athletic subcommittee, and they've talked about sod. We've got a cost, and so we're trying to just basically find a way to utilize these fields as quickly as possible without having to wait a year or 2 years. And also, we've had experience with grass practice fields, and they wear out very quickly. And this last year's been a challenge for the athletic director because we've had teams all over the place. Ipswich River, onto the baseball field, the football teams are practicing on the baseball field. So it's been a real challenge. So we're trying to find a solution that makes sense and that's affordable.
According to Athletic Director Dave Johnson, everything else seems to be going smoothly with all the new facilities. Finally, I believe this week, maybe this week in the transcript, but soon, we should hear an announcement about new coaches for softball and baseball. Mr. Johnson said that those announcements should be forthcoming. So hopefully this week. And that's it.
Yep, okay, I don't have anything to add. That's the only subcommittee meeting we had to report on. We do have a schedule of upcoming subcommittee meetings. Policy subcommittee will meet on October 30th at 3:30 p.m. Athletics subcommittee will meet again on November 18th at 12:30 p.m. Finance planning team will meet November 21st at 8:15 a.m. And the NORCAM meeting.
I think it's the Thursday before. What's the Thursday before Thanksgiving? I think that's the day of the next meeting.
Okay. 17th.
17th.
So that's the NORCAM meeting. It's November 17th. Okay. I believe we do have an administrative report on the superintendent to deliver that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to introduce to you in the audience Dr. Christine McGrath, who is the retired superintendent from the Tewksbury Public Schools. I believe you are all aware that and I think there are 35 other new superintendents in Massachusetts this year participating in the new superintendent's induction program through the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. And as such, we are all assigned a mentor superintendent, Dr. McGrath, who worked with Mrs. Willis, is working with me this year, so she's here this evening to just observe the school community.
Well, you did a great job with Mrs. Willis.
So welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thanks.
I'm happy to report that after 6 days on the job, I believe, from my perspective, that my transition has gone very well. It's been a very busy week, but I'm very pleased, and I've had an opportunity to visit the 3 elementary schools and the middle school, and to tour those schools with each of the principals, and to meet with staff and students. I'm also planning to introduce myself formally at the staff meetings of the 4 other schools other than the high school, and I did the first of those introductions today at the middle school at the faculty meeting this afternoon. I'm anticipating having an entry plan outlined to the school committee to present to you formally in December with a target date of a February-March 2015 presentation on my ultimate comprehensive entry plan. I updated you a little bit on the assistant principal search for the high school. I think that the report I gave just a moment ago pretty much covered what I had in my supplemental report for you. The Young Americans program, I know you all were very attuned to the program and participated in seeing the fantastic turnout of the North Reading Public Schools students who performed a culminating performance on October 21st. I think it's very deserving that there be a public thank you to the Performing Arts Department, with particular thanks to Kyle Lister, Allison Kane, Eric Foreman, Kristen Dye, Christine Larson, Chris Tajo, and Ruth Clark, who did an outstanding job for the last few months preparing to welcome the Young Americans for the second time in North Reading in 6 years. Statistically, there were 283 North Reading students that participated. I think everyone would agree that the performances were really just, they were unbelievable. That's in the word. I think they were just unbelievable. There was so much enthusiasm. The performances were great. So many thanks to the host families in North Reading that hosted the Young Americans at their home for 3 days. It was just one of those true feel-good moments, and I think some thank yous are well deserved. And as a bonus, because of the program, $2,600 was raised and will be used to support the Masters program. And I will have that as a formal donation to the school department for you all to adopt in an upcoming school year.
Mr. Chair, just to comment on that, it's funny, we know that there are some issues in different parts of the building that we're still working on. The Performing Arts Center has several of them, but of course the public, most of the public doesn't know about these issues. And I'm sitting and I'm just, for me to be quiet and listen is hard, but I'm sitting and listening, and the comments about people coming in from out of town because they have grandchildren, and they couldn't believe that. They said, I've never seen anything like this at a high school. And then Jerry and I were speaking with Carl Lister after Kathy's event the other night, and she was saying that this theater compares to some of the theaters that we regularly go into in Boston. She said, as far as a high school theater goes, this is A1. There's nothing that she's seen that.
The facility and the capabilities of the facility.
The lighting was so, it had so much.
We have some things to deal with there, obviously, but I just want to repeat what John said, to thank our faculty and staff, because clearly they put in some around-the-clock time to get this done. And if you were here, it was actually inspiring. I'm telling you, I mean that. And I'm somebody that goes to something like this like once every 5 years, and I thought it was spectacular. And the way they incorporated our kids, I didn't know there were 283, John. 283. You had to see it to believe it. I mean, the way that they incorporated the kids into the performance. What they did was they performed for an hour, the Young Americans, and then they took an intermission. And then the second hour, they incorporated all of they were elementary school, middle school, and high school kids. So if we ever get an opportunity to bring them back, I mean, and what an opportunity it was for us. Both shows were sold out. To get all these people into the building, into the theater, it was unbelievable. It was really great.
I also want to thank all of the teachers who allowed their students to be out of the classroom for almost 2 full days to participate also in the event, because we had their cooperation also, so it was great.
So the next item I wanted to report on for you was with the recent adoption by the school committee of policy LEC, Relations with Booster and Support Organizations. Mr. Connolly and I believe some of you are aware of this, had intended to host an informational meeting for anyone who might be interested in learning more about how to form a support organization or a booster club under the provisions of the new policy. So I wanted to inform you that meeting is scheduled to take place at 4:30 at my office on Wednesday, November 12th. Not knowing exactly how many people we will have in attendance, although I have had people RSVP already. They will be in attendance. We may move that meeting to the library at the middle school. But I have put word out that the meeting will take place, and I expect that there will be a significant amount of interest.
John, you put out emails on that?
I did.
Could you make sure the Diamond Club, I don't know if you have a contact with the Diamond Club?
I have not, but I can.
If you could, because I talked to Coach Carey the other day. He was very interested in getting.
I can start with Scott Ellis.
Yeah, start with Scott Ellis. Just let them know about that meeting. I'm sure helpful.
Yeah, and I think there's genuine interest in learning how to form your organizations properly, and I also think that there's interest in expanding the number of people that might be involved in our students through through various booster organizations.
I think there's still people with questions, obviously.
There are, yeah. It's a complex policy. It's pretty detailed, and I think under the guidance, and I thought Michael's PowerPoint that he has shown already to the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council, and then again here, was a very good one. I think it offers a lot of good information.
Well, I just, somewhat related, I did want to commend you for your rapid response last week to a difficult situation on your second day on the job. Appreciate you quickly getting a detailed memo of as much detail as you could out to all the parents related to a police action that was taken last week. And I think that helped kind of settle the community. At least the information was finally out there because people were wondering what was going on with the athletic boosters. But I just wanted to commend you for your quick action and getting the communications out on that.
Thank you. I think that tends to make it clear to everybody that there was a reason why we modified our policy.
Yes.
Well, clarified. There's something.
I agree. And the last thing for the committee that I wanted to brief you on is that the date has changed again. Now, the Board of Selectmen is meeting on November 13th. They have moved, I think I had informed some of you informally that there was a Board of Selectmen meeting on November 12th. That meeting has been changed to November 13th. And I've asked the town administrator to place the school committee on the agenda to make a joint appointment of our new high school principal, Mr. LaPret, to the secondary school building committee. So that meeting will be at 7 o'clock at the town hall. If you could just please mark your calendar for...
We need at least 3 of our members there, all right?
I know I can't be there, so.
Okay.
As long as we have the ratings, yeah, we just need 3.
So we'll be meeting at 6:30, Jenny.
And I will ask Mrs. Lundell to post that as a school committee meeting as well.
Okay.
And that was the last of my report.
Okay, thank you, John. Our future meetings, November 10th, 7 p.m. at the same room, Distance Learning Lab. November 24th, just to caution everybody, that is high school parent-teacher conference night, so regarding parking, etc. What time does that start, John?
The parent-teacher conference is started at 6:30.
6:30.
So if you would like, I can reserve the spaces out in the front, this entrance here.
Yeah. Okay.
You may want to just not even bother with the back lot and come right up.
Let's do that. And that's, so November 24th is a 7 o'clock meeting. And then December 8th, is also 7 o'clock here. Anything further from anybody?
Sorry, Jim, if I could just add that the December 8th meeting will be the high school will make its annual presentation to you as a school-based committee meeting.
Terrific.
I did have one question. Any update on the tech coordinator position? What's the timeline for that?
As a matter of fact, I did have a conversation with Dr. Daly this afternoon, and there were only 2 applicants for the position. He was not encouraged by that. And I think it's fair to say that we are probably going to be going in a different direction, much like Mrs. Willis said in Longview, that it was likely we might go with a contracted service plan and revisit posting for the position for the spring.
So do that for the, basically this whole school year?
That's what he and I spoke about very briefly this afternoon, but that there is some work that needs immediate attention.
Right.
And we think that that's best.
It's critical time, again.
Yeah, that is.
Right now.
Does Patrick think that's feasible, that a contractor can do?
He does.
Okay.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have, I'm sorry, John, are we going to have to contract for a term? I mean, in other words, can we get somebody in there on a...
I think he has ideas that are looking at a period of time, but not for the remaining.
Okay, because I just don't want to get locked into something we're not going to be satisfied with what...
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Patrick, and I feel this way too, the best plan is to have a staff person. And one of our employees in that role. We just did not, the search at this time of year did not warrant the result.
I don't think it's worth it.
Okay, there's nothing further. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. So,
Second.
motion by Cliff, second by Karen. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.